The fight was completely lawless. Black Death resorted to dirty tactics, striking Tommy's maze temple with his elbow and landing a powerful blow to his groin. However, as the match wore on, Black Death began to tire. Tommy seized the opportunity, unleashing a series of precise punches that overpowered his opponent and left him unconscious on the mat. The story begins with Tommy Riley, a high school student, is forced to leave his familiar life behind and move to a new place with his father due to unforeseen circumstances. Their new home sits in the heart of a deteriorating neighborhood dominated by gangs, where survival is a daily challenge. On his first day at the new school, Tommy becomes the target of local teenagers intent on harassing him. To his dismay, 3 of the bullies who taunted him on his way to school turn out to be his classmates, intensifying the difficulties he faces. As a new student, Tommy was determined to avoid conflict with the troublemakers. When the group of students repeatedly asked him to switch seats, he complied 3 times without protest. However, by the 4th demand, Tommy had reached his limit. Refusing to budge, he stood his ground, unfazed by the bullies' irritated glares. The tension in the room was palpable, teetering on the edge of confrontation, until the teacher arrived, commanding the class to settle down just in time. The bullies grudgingly complied, but not without warning Tommy that they would deal with him at recess. True to their word, they cornered him during the break, this time backed by reinforcements to heighten the intimidation. Just as the situation seemed to escalate, a rival gang appeared, cutting the confrontation short. The power struggle between gangs had become a grim routine at the school, with one-on-one showdowns between gang leaders now a common spectacle, cheered on by the gathered students. In these fights, no one hesitated to wield sharp weapons, knowing that one-on-one battles rarely ended with a true victor, only temporary dominance. But the chaos at school was just one of Tommy's burdens. At home, he faced the constant harassment of debt collectors. The move to this new neighborhood had been a desperate attempt to escape the fallout of his father's crippling gambling debts, a spiral triggered by his mother's death. Tommy now found himself caught in the fallout of his father's troubles, facing 2 armed debt collectors who showed up at their door. Though they didn't harm him, their threats were chilling as they warned the overdue debt must be paid within 2 weeks. Later that night, Tommy was awakened by the sound of his father returning home. Despite everything, his father showed genuine concern, asking about Tommy's first day at the new school. His love for his son shone through, a constant amidst the chaos surrounding their lives. Tommy chose to lie, assuring his father that everything was fine. But his father wasn't fooled, he could sense that something was amiss. With a bit of coaxing, Tommy finally admitted that 2 debt collectors had shown up at the house earlier that afternoon. The news hit his father hard, filling him with guilt for the hardship his mistakes had brought upon their family. Determined to make amends, he promised Tommy that he would set things right. He then shared some hopeful news. He had just secured a higher-paying job in another city, one that would allow him to pay off the debt and rebuild their lives. Tommy didn't mind living on his own for a while. He was mature enough to handle his responsibilities. Wanting to ease his father's burden, he even took a part-time job washing dishes at a local restaurant owned by the parents of one of his classmates. However, one evening, a group of thugs from school spotted him working there and seized the opportunity to resume their mocking. At first, Tommy tried to brush off their jeers, determined to endure the humiliation. But when they escalated by shoving him and laughing in his face, his patience snapped. Tommy sprang to his feet, swiftly taking down 2 of the guys in the group with precise, powerful strikes. Just as he prepared to face the third, an older man unexpectedly stepped in to stop the altercation. The man introduced himself as Jack, a local boxing promoter. Impressed by Tommy's natural skill and fighting instincts, Jack offered him a spot in an underground illegal fight, promising a $600 payout. But Tommy didn't bite. Without hesitation, he countered with a demand for $1,250, calmly telling Jack he was welcome to find someone else willing to fight for less if he couldn't meet his price. After heated negotiations, Jack finally conceded to Tommy's terms, sealing the deal with a handshake in front of Dawn, the restaurant owner's daughter. The following night, Tommy arrived at the underground fight venue, where Jack introduced him to Noah, the man tasked with training and guiding him during his time in the ring. Noah wasted no time laying out the harsh reality. This wasn't an ordinary boxing match but a brutal, no-holds-barred fight where fairness didn't exist. To make matters worse, Tommy's opponent was none other than Black Death, a notorious fighter infamous for his dirty tactics and ruthless determination to win at any cost. To his surprise, Tommy encountered Romano, a classmate, who was visibly shocked to learn that Tommy's first opponent was Black Death. Romano urged him to watch out for Black Death's devastating right punch, a signature move. Armed with this advice, Tommy stepped into the ring, where the crowd had overwhelmingly bet on Black Death and erupted in cheers as the notorious fighter made his entrance. Just as Noah had warned, the fight was pure chaos, with no rules in sight. From the opening moments, Black Death employed dirty tactics, landing a brutal elbow strike to Tommy's temple. Blood began to trickle down Tommy's face, fueling the frenzy of the roaring audience. Situation escalated further when Black Death landed a crushing blow to Tommy's groin. Despite the blatant foul, the referee ignored it, and in this lawless ring, anything went. However, as the fight wore on, Black Death began to tire, giving Tommy the opening he needed. Seizing the moment, Tommy launched a flurry of precise strikes, each one finding its mark. In a final decisive move, he knocked Black Death to the ground, sending him crashing unconscious to the mat. In the end, Tommy triumphed in his first match, leaving the audience, the bettors, and even the investors stunned. But when he raised his hand in victory, the entire arena erupted in cheers. The following day, Tommy was summoned to meet with Jack's boss, Mr. Horn, to collect his payment. Impressed by Tommy's performance the night before, Horn offered him a chance to continue fighting for him. Despite the offer, Tommy stood his ground, insisting that he only wanted the agreed-upon sum of $1,250, nothing more, nothing less. As time went on, Tommy crossed paths with Dawn, and her disappointment was palpable when she discovered he had chosen the dangerous path of illegal fighting. Yet a sense of relief washed over her when he explained that he had only participated in one match and had no plans to pursue it further. Everything seemed to settle, but things took a turn when Jack suggested Tommy meet with Horn later that afternoon, setting in motion a chain of events that would alter everything. After several discussions, Horn finally revealed a startling truth. The two debt collectors who had visited Tommy's house were actually his subordinates. The situation worsened when Horn revealed that Tommy's father had recently relapsed into gambling and owed a staggering $15,000. However, Horn wasn't without a solution. He proposed that Tommy fight for him in a few matches, promising it would be an easy way to pay off his father's debt. As expected, Tommy reluctantly accepted Horn's offer, determined to help his father pay off the debt. On his way home from the meeting, he saw his classmate Lincoln being chased by gang members. Refusing to stand idly by, Tommy rushed to his friend's aid. However, outnumbered by the gang, both of them were forced to flee. Once they had escaped the danger, they found a quiet spot to catch their breath and talk. During their conversation, Lincoln unexpectedly revealed that, despite his youth, he was already married with children. This was why Lincoln had decided to become an illegal boxer. Like Tommy, he needed to earn money to support his family. That night, Tommy watched Lincoln in the ring, where his friend appeared to be struggling against a much larger opponent. But Lincoln wasn't one to give up easily. With determination, he turned the fight around and delivered a stunning victory. As the match ended, Tommy's curiosity about Horn deepened, and he couldn't help but wonder what kind of world he had entered. After watching Lincoln's fight, Tommy decided to meet with Noah to learn more about Horn. During their conversation, Tommy uncovered Horn's remarkable past. He was a legendary former boxer who had once held the world heavyweight title. What was even more astonishing was that Horn had only lost a single match in his entire career. In their rematch, Horn exacted his revenge, leaving his opponent with a lifelong injury. However, even a fighter of Horn's caliber couldn't escape the toll of time. After suffering a severe leg injury and undergoing multiple surgeries, his career came to an abrupt end when his legs could no longer endure the demands of the ring. Horn, too old to return to the ring, shifted his focus to becoming a boxing promoter. The new role not only provided him with substantial earnings, but also kept him safely out of harm's way. A few days after Tommy began his training, Dawn visited his home, expressing concern over his recent absences from school. Eventually, Tommy opened up to her about the struggles his family faced and the circumstances that had led him into the world of illegal boxing. Dawn, with compassion and understanding, offered him the support he needed. From that moment, their bond grew stronger, and Tommy's life began to improve as his boxing career took off. Dawn was by his side through it all, and their connection blossomed into a romantic relationship. marking the beginning of a new chapter in both their lives. In addition to forming a strong bond with Romano and Lincoln, Tommy also shared many enjoyable moments with them every day. However, one night tragedy struck during a fight. Romano, who was up against Short, a boxer rated much lower than him, had been in full control of the match, dominating from start to finish. But as the fight entered the 5th round, everything changed. Short, desperate to turn the tide, resorted to a dirty tactic, secretly slipping a mysterious substance into his gloves. This deceitful move altered the course of the match, putting Romano at a serious disadvantage. As the fight wore on, Short seized the opportunity, quickly locking Romano in a headlock and forcing him to inhale the strange substance seeping from his gloves. Almost immediately, Romano's vision blurred, rendering him unable to fight effectively. Sensing his advantage, Short began to savagely beat him, launching a relentless assault. Despite the blood pouring from his wounds, Romano refused to show any signs of weakness, almost as if he were reveling in the torment. Watching from the sidelines, Tommy couldn't bear the brutality unfolding before him. With the referee showing no intention of intervening, Tommy rushed to the bell and rang it, halting the match before things could escalate further. When the fight ended, Romano lay unconscious in the corner of the ring, unable to defend himself. Back at home, Tommy received a call from his father. His voice was oddly calm, as if everything were still normal. He only asked about Tommy's well-being, and mentioned that their plans to leave had to be delayed due to some unresolved matters. The following day, Tommy visited Romano in the hospital, and his heart sank when he saw his friend still in a coma. The doctors confirmed the devastating news. Romano was brain dead. Tommy felt as though his world had shattered. Overcome with anger and frustration, he vowed not to let the person who had caused his friend's suffering go unpunished. His chance for revenge came when he faced Short in a life-or-math match in the ring. Once again, Short attempted to use a sneaky trick during his fight with Tommy. But this time, Tommy was ready. He had learned from his previous encounter with Romano, recognizing the telltale sign of the mysterious liquid dripping onto Short's gloves. Not about to be deceived again, Tommy took control of the fight on his own terms. He delivered a swift kick to Short's groin, causing his opponent to crumple in pain, then followed up with a barrage of powerful punches, leaving Short no opportunity to recover. Tommy secured a swift victory in the 1st round. With Romano's passing, Lincoln became Tommy's only remaining friend. However, during one training session, Lincoln suddenly felt his strength fade and collapsed without warning. After a medical examination, the doctors revealed that he had suffered a brain injury from a severe blow to the head the previous week. This explained his sudden loss of energy, and the doctors advised him to take at least 60 days off from boxing to fully recover. Lincoln was warned that continuing to fight could result in permanent brain damage. However, Horn had other plans for him. That evening, Tommy was shocked to see the opponent he was scheduled to face in his next match fighting someone else. Concerned, he sought out Horn to understand what was going on. That's when Horn revealed his plan. He wanted Tommy to fight none other than Lincoln. Tommy was filled with both anger and disappointment. Lincoln's condition clearly wasn't stable enough for him to continue fighting, and Tommy couldn't bear the thought of losing another friend. Despite Tommy's heartfelt pleas, Lincoln was determined to step into the ring and face his opponent. For Lincoln, this was a rare chance to prove himself and earn Horn's attention, with the promise of moving up to the professional level if he won. Realizing he couldn't change Lincoln's mind, Tommy tried one last time to meet with Horn and persuade him to call off the match. But despite his best efforts, all his pleas were in vain. As the day of the fight drew closer, the tension in the underground boxing world mounted. Dawn, eager to support her boyfriend, couldn't wait for the match. Meanwhile, Lincoln buzzed with excitement, but Tommy's heart was heavy, weighed down by the reality of the upcoming battle. He wasn't nearly as eager as his opponent. As soon as the first bell rang, Lincoln rushed at Tommy, unleashing a series of powerful punches. Tommy, however, remained passive, refusing to fight back even as Lincoln landed several hits. This approach clearly infuriated Lincoln, as it was apparent that neither of them would earn the audience's respect if the fight continued like this. Horn, growing frustrated with the lack of action, couldn't tolerate the boredom building in the crowd. In the second half of the round, he threatened Tommy, warning him that if he didn't start fighting seriously, he would have Dawn arrested and could do anything he wanted to her. Despite the threat, Tommy struggled with the thought of hurting Lincoln. He knew that one strong punch could lead to severe consequences, even death. Reluctantly, in order to satisfy Horn and the disappointed crowd, Tommy finally decided to strike Lincoln, though every part of him resisted. Tommy tried to reason with Lincoln, telling him that no matter what happened, Horn didn't care about their lives, only the money they could bring him. But Lincoln, undeterred, attacked Tommy's head without hesitation. Realizing that all his efforts to change Lincoln's mind were futile, Tommy stopped trying to convince him. If Lincoln still wanted to make money for Horn, Tommy told him to fight with everything he had. However, something unexpected happened. Lincoln finally understood the truth in Tommy's words, that this whole fight was wrong. Deciding to stop before the match could continue, Lincoln let down the crowd. Horn, furious and disappointed, stormed into the ring, demanding that Lincoln keep fighting. But Lincoln stubbornly refused, creating an even more tense and volatile situation. Horn, seething with rage, announced that he would no longer work with Lincoln. Unable to contain his fury, he lashed out violently, striking Lincoln hard in the head and sending him tumbling out of the ring. The brutal act shocked everyone present, but for Tommy, it was the final straw. Watching Horn's cruelty, he knew he couldn't stand by any longer. Stepping into the ring, Tommy confronted Horn, calling him out for his despicable actions, and swayed him to adjust. Horn promised the student that responsibility actions. Tommy then issued a challenge, a one-on-one fight to settle everything. The stakes were high. If Tommy won, Horn would pay off his father's debt. But if Horn emerged victorious, Tommy would be bound to work for him indefinitely. Horn, fueled by arrogance and confidence in his own abilities, agreed without hesitation. However, he added his own condition to raise the intensity. They would fight bare-knuckled. Horn, a former boxing champion, leveraged his vast experience to dominate the fight early on. He exuded overconfidence, taunting and insulting Tommy at every opportunity. Yet, this arrogance proved to be his undoing. Tommy, though younger and less experienced, was not only physically strong, but also exceptionally clever. He quickly analyzed Horn's fighting style and began devising a strategy to shift the momentum. Tommy initially let Horn take the offensive, absorbing his blows with calculated patience. This approach led to Horn inadvertently injuring himself, breaking one of his fingers during an overzealous strike. Sensing an opportunity, Tommy turned the tables by mocking Horn in the same way he had been ridiculed earlier. Horn's anger flared, and Tommy recognized that his opponent's fury was his greatest vulnerability. However, exploiting Horn's rage alone wouldn't be enough to secure victory. Tommy needed more than just strategy to take down the seasoned fighter. Tommy executed a clever feint, pretending to have injured his right arm, catching Horn completely off guard. Seizing the opportunity, he delivered a decisive punch to Horn's face, followed by a relentless barrage of 13 powerful blows that sent the former champion crashing to the ground. With Horn defeated, Tommy and his father were finally freed from the crushing debt that had haunted them. In the film's closing moments, Tommy celebrates his hard-earned victory with Lincoln and Dawn, marking the end of a grueling chapter in his life. The story leaves viewers with a profound lesson about self-control and the destructive nature of gambling. It warns that gambling doesn't just jeopardize your finances, it can entangle you in a web of debt, expose you to threats, and bring harm to both yourself and your loved ones.